invite her in right now. We're about to get to it. So I hope you guys are having a good day so far. Hey,
Hey, good morning, good afternoon.
morning. Oh yeah, you're afternoon. I'm morning. Thank you for
Yes,
joining me so far. I really appreciate it. Last time you were interviewing me, so now the tables have turned this time. I'm stoked.
I'm in the hot seat. I'm excited.
So I'm gonna just do a little prayer with us real quick, and then we'll get started on our chatting it up.
Okay.
Cool. So I want to send love to anybody that's suffering from domestic violence issues out there. I want to send love to anybody that's suffering from mental health issues out there. I want to send love to anybody that's suffering from addiction issues. I want to send love to any of our ancestors that have passed on to the spirit realm. I want to send love to all of you for being here today. And lastly, I want to send love to our precious Mother Earth. Right now, I'm on Amamutsun territory in Santa Cruz, California. If you guys want to comment where you guys are at, that'd be dope. So today my special guest is Auntie Sage Chanel. We'll just go ahead and get it started with an intro about you and yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Well, hello everyone. I am Auntie Sage. I'm the host of Skoden Talks with the Homies. I am from Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma. I am Shawnee, Ponca, Oto, and Lakota Sioux. Um, I am a former Miss International Two Spirits. I am also a board member of the Central Oklahoma Two Spirit Society, and I'm also a mentor for the youth Two Spirit group called Cousins here in Oklahoma.
Awesome. So you're gonna mentor today, right?
Oh, of
So yeah,
course.
yeah. Let's get going on. Let's talk about that. So how long have you been doing that for?
Last year was the first time we got this group together. For the longest time in the Two Spirit societies and just in general, it's been kind of like a stigma to work with kids, especially in the Two Spirit society, because we didn't want to come off as predators or anything. So it's been slow motion with it. And even when we have worked with kids in the past, it's not really been full on one with a lot of them. And so here in Oklahoma, there's a mom and we also have a sovereignty school here. Um, there was a school teacher there. They got together and they were like, we need to do something else. And they felt that it would be the best if they had women run the group. And so they had asked me too, since I was a board member of the Two Spirit group here, if I would be a mentor. And I was like, sure, of course. I was like, I attended a Two Spirit society group the year before, and a lot of the teens had spoke up that we had kind of dropped the ball and left them kind of hanging and not really keeping them involved. And so that kind of made them discouraged and felt pushed away. I was like, of course. I was like, I really want to be involved. And I was like, I want to be there for them. I was like, because growing up, we didn't have anything like that. Like, I did not hear about the Two Spirit gatherings until I was like 20, 22, 23, and I was like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, they really have something like that. And the Two Spirit societies are safe spaces for our Two Spirit relatives to come and feel joined in their ceremonies. Each region has their own gathering, and they wherever they're at, they try to incorporate what ceremonies and what dances they can have there, what they have permission to do. And so they get to dance as whatever they feel, whether it be the male spirit or female spirit or whatever they're comfortable as. And so growing up, when I finally heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm Shawnee. I grew up in my Shawnee traditions, and we stomp dance and stuff. And when I heard that, I was like, they stomp dance? And they was like, yeah. I was like, can I shake shells? Because I've always wanted to shake shells. And stomp dance, the men, they sing, and the women keep time with turtle shells, or modern day, they have cans on their legs. And so I've always wanted to do that. And I did it when I was younger, but I've never got to actually dance around the fire and be around everyone. And so I got invited to the Tulsa Two Spirit gathering, I think in 2011. And so that was the first time I got to actually shake shells and be dressed out. And I have been out as trans since 2009. And before I went to the gathering, one of my mentors at the time, he goes to another ceremonial ground, and he said, there will never be a male or a trans to be able to shake shells and be around that fire. It's just unheard of. And so that discouraged me. And so I was like, why? And so he said, well, he goes, for one, he's like, you don't have a menstrual cycle. He's like, and I was like, well, the funny thing is, I was like, biological women that do have a menstrual cycle, they're not allowed to dance either. I was like, once they're on their menstrual cycle, they're not allowed to dance. So I was like, whether I have it or not, we're not allowed to dance, with or without it. I was like, so I was like, make it make sense. And he goes, that's just the rules. He's like, that's just how I've been taught. If you're not able to have a menstrual cycle, so I left it alone. And so I was like, okay, I was like, I'm not going to argue. I was like, because I was like, I know we are different tribes, and I was like, but in my heart, that sent that burning urge. I'm like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And so there had been some trans sisters before that had been around the fire, and they actually got pulled out and asked to leave. And so I never wanted to be in those kind of situations, because my grandpa was our ceremonial chief, and so um, that would be detrimental to me, to being asked to leave and around that fire. That would hurt me. And so that was just, I was like, okay. I was like, growing up, my grandpa was like, always be respectful of yourself, be respectful for others. They might not agree with you. There's like, but always plead your case, because there's like, you've got something to do. And growing up with my grandpa, he never told me no. He never told me to stop shaking shells. He would always ask us to be like, okay, so let's practice these songs. Let's practice these songs, or let's stomp dance. And he always let me do the female role. And like, he never told me no, but he would like laugh, and he would just kind of like shake his head like, oh my gosh. Like, and then as I got a little older, my grandma and my grandpa, they'd be like, oh, he's going through a phase. He's going through a phase. And so I started finally attending these Two-Spirit Society gatherings. And when I first got there, I was shaking. Like, as soon as I put my cans on, I got all dressed out. And I remember about to start to go dance, I was like shaking. You can hear the rocks in my cans just like shaking. And they're like, are you okay? And I was like, this is something new to me. I was like, this is the first time I'm getting to dance freely. I was like, so I'm scared. I was like, it's a milestone for me. And so finally, when I finally got to dance, I got to introduce myself and tell them, I'm here. I was like, um, I identify as trans. I was like, I'm not too familiar with the term two spirit. I was like, but I feel that in my soul. I was like, I'm gonna soul search and see if that's really what I want to identify as. And honestly, growing up, I never claimed gay. I never claimed trans. I never really tried to. I claimed anything, because I felt like I was that odd kid out. I was that weird kid. I never fit in with anyone, and so I still was trying to like make sense of it all. And I was like, that makes sense to me. And then they finally told me, they was like, well, two spirit is a coined term that's an umbrella term for everyone. It's not just specifically for gays or lesbians or bi or trans. It's just an umbrella term, because a lot of tribes, they don't have the words for that. Like my tribe, Shawnees, growing up, I even asked my grandparents, I was like, do we have a name for gay people? Because I remember there was a lesbian that her and her partner, they came and camped, but they never danced. They would come and set bread down, and they would just come camp and then break down camp. They go home. They never bothered anybody. And so I always asked them, I was like, is there a word for that? Is there a word for gays or lesbian? And they was like, no. They was like, we're just people. And so I just took it as that. I was like, okay. But I was like, other tribes have that. And so growing up, I always admired that lady, because she never bothered anybody. She just came and she lived her life. And like, she didn't have like PDA in front of everybody, but she would like hold her partner's hand and take her here and there. And so I was like, she is brave, because back then, like growing up, I was terrified. Like I was too feminine to be in the closet, and there was no masculine bone in me, but just to watch her be her authentic self, that kind of encouraged me and kept me coming around, because I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. I was like, and nobody's giving her no grief. So I was like, okay. And so when I started going to these Two Spirit gatherings, they was like, so they was like, they have a title called, well, at the time it wasn't Miss International, but it was like a Two Spirit warrior, and there was like a Two Spirit princess. It's changed over the years. When I finally won Miss International, I was the 19th. I should have been the 20th, but they had skipped a year. But the title had been going for a while now. And so it's changed over the years. And like the year or two before mine is when it finally was Miss International Two Spirit, because we represent Canada, Mexico, and the US. So they were like, so there's like, we're hopefully the title will come here in Tulsa. And not too long ago, after I had finally danced there, the Tulsa Two Spirit finally society, they kind of withered out and they haven't had it. So I was like, okay, I was like, well, we're going to start our own. So we came up with the Central Oklahoma Two Spirit Society. I became the co-chair. I was involved maybe a year or two, and then they were like, "We want you to be the co-chair." And I was like, "Okay." And then they were like, "So," they was like, I know you just got your title as our co-chair." They was like, "But the International Two Spirits, our uh, International Two Spirit Gathering is going to be in Texas in a couple months." They was like, would you like to go? And I was like, of course. I was like, can I run for Miss International? And they was like, that would be great. And so we took off to go to Texas, and that gathering was very interesting. They were trying to go very authentic and very traditional and indigenous foods. Well, the first day we get down there, the cooks didn't show up. And so luckily one of the guys came up and knew how to throw some tamales together. So we had tamales for the first night. And then some people ran into town to get some McDonald's for all of us. And so I talked to my group that I went down there with. I was like, it would look good if we made traditional food for them. I was like, I know they're trying to do traditional food. I was like, I think we should sponsor a meal. And so they're like, okay. So we went into town and bought some groceries. But also that first night, getting to see who I was running against, it was kind of shady. Uh, I was brand new to everybody at the international gathering because everyone comes in from everywhere for these things. And so from coast to coast, border to border, I was getting to meet a bunch of people, but they were just kind of like, who are you? And so they were just kind of like sniffing me out, but they weren't really like welcoming. They were just kind of like, oh, it was like competition. So I was like, oh, we're going to do that. So I was like, okay. And so the first day we had to do sound check, and they asked us to do get a free burned CD, no scratches, nothing. And so I did sound check. Everything was good. And so the girls that were running against me, they just were not trying to like hang out. And I was trying to be nice. And I was like, okay. I was like, whatever. So the next morning, they all suggested that the contestants help make breakfast. So we get up, and they was like, well, we're trying to still keep it traditional and indigenous. There's like, we're having quail eggs, and I can't remember what the other thing was, but there's like, if y'all could bust open the quail eggs. And I was like, sure. I did not realize quail eggs were this little. And we get in the kitchen, and it was from the floor to the ceiling of these 12 pack of eggs all the way up. And I was all like, I have to crack all of those. He's like, yes, all of those. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that took like at least 2 hours. And it was like breaking them open. And by the time we got all of them done, it really was not even that big in that bowl. And I was all like, I was like, there is at least 75 to 100 people here. This is not going to feed them. And so luckily we had brought some eggs from there. I was like, we got chicken eggs too. And they was like, oh, well, I was like, well, do we want people to eat or not? They was like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this traditional thing is not going to work out. Like, I was like, we've got supper. I was like, we're gonna do fried bread, corn soup, fried potatoes. I was like, hot meat. I was like, we got all kind of stuff coming. I was like, for dinner. But I was like, if y'all could hold that, I was like, y'all's gonna starve during the daytime. So I was like, I'm so sorry. And so we get everybody fed. We get ready to do the pageant. There was three categories. Actually, I think, yeah, it was three categories. There was regular talent, which could be drag, spoken word, whatever you feel like. And then there had to be a traditional talent, and that could be a poem read or a traditional song, traditional dance, just whatever you felt was in your element. And then we were judged on our traditional clothes. And so the first one was, or no, we did our traditional talent. And so I did stomp dance. And so to represent the whole Two Spirit, I sang what we call a bean dance. We usually start our stomp dance out with that. So I sang and led that, and I invited everybody else to come up with me. And we everybody else came up, they danced with me. There was a lot of people that came and danced with me, and then I asked my brother to sing stomp dance. I was like, I'm gonna start it out with that. I was like, I'm gonna switch and I'll shake shells. So everybody liked that, got a big standing applause for that. And then we got ready for our regular talent, and I was gonna do I Am Changing from Dreamgirls. And to me, I had vision that I was going to do it. And I was trying to tell my transition story. And so we start going, and it was like maybe a minute in. And like, I'm really going with my hands and stuff, and it just stops. And I'm like stuck, and I'm like 1 minute. So I like run over to the DJ, and I'm like, what's going on? And so he flips my CD over. He's like, someone has scratched your CD. Like they took a key to it and just went ham. And I was like, can we, I was like, do you have my other CD? He's like, I don't know where it's at. He's like, I was like, whoever came in here, they took your other CD too. And I was like, so he's like, I'm gonna clean it off. He's like, I can't guarantee you if it's gonna work or not. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, if it doesn't, oh well. So we started over, and it went maybe 5 or 6 seconds after when it stopped the first time. And I threw it, like when it stopped, I threw my hands up and I stormed off. And I was like, I just lost. And well, the other category was our introduction. We had to do our tribal introduction too. So we had 4 categories. Anyways, but I was like, I just lost the pageant. I was like, oh my gosh, this like, just go get changed for the grand entry. You got to get dressed on your traditional clothes. And so I dressed out in our Shawnee traditional clothes. And as we're getting ready to line up too, the contestants, one of the girls even looked at me and looked at my Shawnee clothes. And she was like, you need to get real powwow clothes. And I was like, well, I was like, first of all, we're in a pageant. I was like, and if you look at Miss Indian World or any of the native pageants, I was like, everybody is dressed as their tribal stuff. I was like, not just powwow. I was like, not to not powwow. I was like, I mean, if powwow clothes is what you want to wear, do. I was like, but I am representing my authentic self. I was like, this is how I grew up. This is what represents our women. I was like, I feel proud in my clothes. They're brand new and shiny, and I love them. And so I'm like looking at this girl, and I'm like, she is so extra. And so I'm already like defeated because I'm like, I'm not going to win this. And so we get out there, and like the whole time too, I wore black lipstick for my first talent, and I forgot all about it. So through the whole pageant, I wore this black lipstick. So everybody thought I looked mean. And I forgot I wore it for my traditional and everything else. So I was like, oh my gosh. And so I get out there, and they were like, we're going to go ahead and announce the winners right after grand entry. And there's like, the winner won all categories. And so I was like, oh, great. I was like, yeah, I was like, I didn't win that second talent. I was like, it's definitely not me. So I looked at my friends, and I was like, I'm ready to go. Like, I was like, as soon as they announced this, I was like, I'm getting out of this. I want to go. And so they're like, it's okay. And so there's like, go ahead and welcome Miss International 2016, 2017, State Chanel. And I was like, what? I was like, how did I win? I was like, oh my gosh. And then like the crown didn't show up that year. And so they got me this little Party City sash. And so when they sashed me and then it gave me a crown, I was all like, wait a minute. Like, what? Like, and like the little sash said Miss Intel. That was it. That's all. It didn't even spell out international. And I was all like, oh, I was like, what? Because like they've had pretty crowns and stuff before. And so I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, you're probably going to have to design and make your own. And I was like, okay, no big deal. And so one of the judges come over and shook my hand, and he goes, I just want to tell you, your regular talent was so hilarious. There's like that was like the best comedy skit. And I was like, that was not a comedy skit. I was like, someone messed up my CD. And he goes, I thought it was a skit. He goes, that was so good. He's like, that was hilarious. And I was like, I was like, well, it was not supposed to. He's like, we were laughing. And I was like, honestly, I was like, I heard y'all laughing. I was like, and that was pissing me off. So I was like, when I threw my hands up, I was like, I was pissed. I was like, because I was like, now I was like, I look like a fool. Everybody's laughing at me. He's like, no. He's like, we thought that was a skit. And I was like, oh. I was like, well, it worked in my favor. I was like, whoever was trying to rain on my parade, ha ha to them. So,
Whoever
uh,
scratched your CD was sitting there so mad.
uh, it was a good
You
pageant. We
brought the
had
competition to that
uh,
one. People were hating on you.
it was fun. Well, I mean, I just wanted to do my authentic self. Like I never like once I do go into competition when I do pageants, I never announce that I'm going. I never say that I'm going to be in it. And so I just want to come prepared and just come to slay. And so I didn't tell nobody. So when I just showed up, I was just like, okay, if they're gonna be mad at me, be mad at me. I was like, but you have no reason to be. And so my cousin that came with me, she goes, girl, and like honestly, I was like so defeated too because I had like went all out not having like hardly any money to get back. I was like, girl, I was like, we have just enough gas money to get home. I was like, so I was like, but I was like, I'm coming home with the crown. I was like, but I was like, there is one casino on the way home. I was like, I've got a casino card at everywhere else. I was like, and no free play. I was like, but I was like, I have not stopped at this one. I was like, let's stop in. And so we get in there and they're like, well, you have like $5 free play. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I was like, max bet one machine was like $3. Max bet it, and I hit like the little jackpot was like $1,200. And I was like, hallelujah. Like that trip was like amazing. Like the ending too. And I was like, when we get back, I was like, we are celebrating. I was like, and I'm going to buy beads for my crown for this with this money. I was like, cause I was like, we're gonna make this good. And then also like before me, a lot of the leaders, a lot of the people, they were not trying to I guess, make a big deal of the pageant or the societies. And before me, Spirit Wildcat, she was the Miss International before, and she was really making a name for herself. She was in magazines, she was being interviewed, going here and there. She was a big powwow person. And so I don't know if she got the same messages I did, but as soon as I won, I was doing my thing, going here and there. And one of the elders actually reached out to me and was like, don't make a big deal out of this pageant. It's not really, you're making it bigger than what it is. And so I didn't reply back to him with any kind of sass. I was just like, well, I was like, my mentors here, I was like, they've always been telling me visibility is important because to be heard is to be seen. And I was like, and that's kind of where I'm at. I was like, and this is a great platform for that. I was like, a lot of people don't know what Two Spirit was. And like a lot of the regular pageants, the LGBTQ community pageants, they kind of made fun of the title at first because they were just kind of like, oh, you just went to Texas and made up your own title and brought something back. Because a lot of them are like well-known systems that have been around for a long time and everybody knows about them. And they were like, we've never heard about this. And I'm just kind of like, well, you're hearing about it now. I was like, and honestly, I was like, I'm not the first Oklahoman. I was like, there was another one from Tulsa that was Miss International. I was like, and she might not have did much with it. I was like, but I was like, I am. I was like, I'm getting around. I was like, and I'm doing. I was like, but the thing is too, I was like, I'm not trying to be in the bars with it either. I was like, I'm taking these to colleges. I'm traveling. I'm being a public speaker. I was like, I'm not trying to be a bar queen. So that's kind of how I responded with that elder. And he goes, well, I just want you to be careful. He said, because you're going to come. I was like, along with the support, I was like, there comes a lot of haters. There comes a lot of people that's not going to agree or be as current, I guess he was trying to say. But I was like, okay. I was like, well, I get that. I was like, and I was like, hopefully, I was like, if I do run into those roadblocks, I was like, I hope I can lean to you for guidance. He goes, yeah. And so I guess when I left that door open, it kind of was like, oh, well, she's not really that bad. And like, honestly, a lot of the elders, when I was traveling around, I got met with like roadblock, kind of like, I guess they thought I was mean or they thought I was some kind of way. And I was just like, no, I was like, after I explained where I come from and my growing up, they were just kind of like, oh. you're actually a nice little young queen. And I was all like, yes. And like I am kind of the younger, well now not anymore, but at the time I was one of the younger ones because a lot of the younger generation under me, my age or younger, they're still kind of afraid to be out as a two-spirit or an Indian. And so they're afraid to be in those circles. So, and they've kind of made fun of the two-spirit societies too because they think it's because, or it's there's a lot of pretendians there. And I just told him, I was like, I was like, a lot of these didn't grow up traditional. I was like, but to show them what it looks like and to be there, I was like, we're moving forward. I was like, and when you make fun of them, that only discourages them. I was like, and keeps them from connecting with that circle. I was like, so I was like, I know it's hard. I was like, and I was like, if you really wanted to be a part of those circles, I was like, and you should, I was like, you should mentor them. I was like, if you know how to do this and you think they're doing wrong, I was like, don't correct them. I was like, but just tell them, well, this is what I was taught. And I was like, so I was like, that's a better way to go about it instead of just sitting back and not saying anything. And so that's another roadblock we're gonna have to hopefully overcome in the near future, but slowly but surely, even in my circles, it has become a little bit more easier for me to come around and dance. It's still met with a lot of colonialism, with religion, and just how people's been brought up, going to boarding schools, the teachings of homophobia and transphobia. It's still very strong and it's still very scary. But I'm a very tall girl. I'm 6'2", and so I feel like I was made to be this strong warrior for my trans community, for my two-spirit people, because I've got a voice, and when I do speak, a lot of people listen, and I've taken the advantage of that, and I've loved it. I've loved my whole journey, and coming back to be around with my family. My family is number one and everything, and they're my biggest support. And I just tell everybody, I was like, once you show your true self, it gets a lot easier. I was like, the more you hide, the more you lie. I was like, it makes it that much harder for that path if you're trying to get back into those circles, if you're trying to be back and be ceremonial. I was like, you've got to face your truth. I was like, because I was like, once you get around that fire, I was like, that fire does so much for you. I was like, being around those circles, I feel rejuvenated when I dance, when I get to sing, when I get to share kinship with my Shawnee people, my Cherokee people, my Muskogee people. You dance all night and you sacrifice your sleep, your food, and you get that euphoria around like 4 o'clock in the morning. And after that kind of passes, it's just like you get a whole reset and you get to restart on life. And as like I told them, I was like, I wish everybody could feel that. I was like, that is an awesome feeling to be able to dance and not be made fun of and just be able to share in ceremony. I was like, that's just everything. I was like, and that's a part of living your truth. I was like, and in my transition, I was like, I tell everybody, I was like, I live in three worlds. I was like, I live in the regular world, I live in the gay community, the LGBTQ community, and I also live in the Native community. I was like, it gets hard to navigate sometimes because we get lost in one world or we think one's more important. And I was like, and once it comes down to it, I love that feeling of being with my Native people. I was like, so in my transition, it's been very important to be in my Native circles and to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, and to share that. And so in the regular world and in our LGBTQ communities, I've been made fun of and I've been, I guess, questioned because they're like, why aren't you further in your transition? And I was like, there's some things that are more important to people. I was like, and everybody's journey is different. I was like, but in my own, I was like, I have to be secure in my Native circles first. I was like, that's very important to me. I was like, you might not understand it. I was like, and it's not for you to understand. I was like, but if you're here for my journey, I was like, then just hear me out and support me. And so that's what I told my mom, because my mom, she's been hesitant, but she's very supportive. And so I got to Bates Two Spirit group and out of San Fran. They host a Two Spirit powwow every year. It's the first weekend in February. And I got, after I reigned as Miss International, I got asked to be head dancer for them. I never grew up in the powwow circles. And so I even asked them, I was like, I didn't grow up this way. I was like, I feel a little intimidated. But I was like, my mom danced in it. I was like, let me ask her first. And so her being Chief's daughter, she always told me too, she goes, when you get asked to do something, you never say no. And she's like, and if you have, if you have someone that's, or if you ever have to say no, she's like, you better have a damn good excuse. And so I was all like, she's like, it's fine. She's like, and like, they asked me maybe like 2 or 3 months out. And I was like, I have no clothes. I have no feathers. I have nothing for giveaway. And so they were just like, just come as you are. They's like, we just want you to be here. They's like, we think you'll be a good representative. So I was like, okay. So I took that on. And at that time, I told my mom, because my mom, I don't really have a really good relationship with her husband. And I told her right then and there, I was like, I really need my mom. And throughout with my journey with everything else, my mom, she's been supportive, but she's never actually came to my events or anything. And I voiced it to her. I was like, I know you go to my brother's stuff. But sometimes I do need my mom too. And so I said that to her again. I was like, I need my mom. But I will have everything covered. But your husband is not allowed on this trip. And she goes, you know that's gonna make him mad, right? And I was like, but I really need you. So she's like, okay. And so all the way up until the morning we were leaving, he really was trying to come, and I had to tell him no. And I was like, no disrespect. But I need that bond with my mom. I've not been able to bond with my mom in a long time. And I need my full 100% support on this trip. And I'm taking my besties at the time. I've got all that I need. And so he's like, okay. He's like, well, y'all be careful. And so we get out to San Fran, and the first couple of days, like when I go out of town, I get all up into this and makeup. Like I will get up extra early, put my lashes on, my makeup, because I want to go out. I want to just live my best life and just have a good time. And we were in San Fran, so I was like, heck yes, I'm getting dressed up every day. I don't care. I'm going to put on the prettiest wigs I got. I don't care. And so the first couple of days, she's never actually been out in public with me when I'm all dolled up. And so she would kind of like walk and kind of hang behind, and then she would catch up because she's very protective of me. And so if anybody's like side-eyeing me or talking about me, she's first one to like, brr. And so she would come up to me. She was like, did you hear them? Did you see them? And I was like, Mom, I just want you to understand. I was like, I'm in a new city. I was like, how long are we here? She goes, 4 days. I was like, when are we going to see them again? She goes, never. And I was like, let them talk. I was like, people are going to talk. I was like, even when we're back home. I was like, but you know what? If they're not saying it to my face, it's none of my business. I was like, because I was like, they don't have the courage to say it to my face. And the people that do say stuff to my face, they can't say it the way they said it behind my back. I was like, me and them are going to have an understanding and respect each other when I'm done with them. And so she's like, okay. And so we get to the powwow, and man, that powwow went so fast, and it just went like, there was one, I was stressed out just beginning to end. And like right after grand entry was my special, I stomp danced for them. And I remember, because I had a dress for Gord dance, and then I was changing into my stomp dance stuff and then getting back into another dress. And so I had to go boom, boom, boom into different dresses. And they was like, you have 5 minutes to get into your stomp dance stuff. So I ran to the bathroom, put my shells on, and I could not pull out my otters on my braids. And I was like, Mom, I was like, they're tied on good. I was like, you put them on too tight. And she's like, go out there and shake with them anyway. She goes, they don't know what that is. They said, they don't know what stomp dance is. They said, go ahead. And so I'm out there stomp dancing with these long old otters. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, if anybody is watching this stream back home, they're probably like, what is she doing? So I'm sitting there dancing. We get done with that. and then get back into my other dress. And after that, it was a breeze. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Bates Two Spirit Powwow, it's huge. It's beautiful. You will see everything under the sun. The vendors are awesome. It's just good dancing, good energy. And so we got done with that. And Shawnee traditions, when your kid finally gets put in like a role, asked to do like a leader dance or anything, it's good to gift them with a blanket or jewelry or just something to show your appreciation. And so when we got done, my mom came over and she gifted me some stuff. And she goes, I'm so proud of you. She goes, not once today did I have to tell you what to do. She goes, you just did it. She goes, this whole week, she goes, I finally get to see you in your light. And that was the first time she called me her daughter, was that day. She goes, I'm so proud to call you my daughter. She goes, everything that I have taught you, she goes, as a boy, she goes, it's carried on. She goes, I've always been scared. She goes, I've never been scared of your transitioning. I've been scared of people hurting you. And so she goes, I'm going to gift you these gifts as my appreciation. She goes, and thank you for making me proud to be your mama. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, Mom, I was like, you're going to make my lashes fall out. And so that was a big milestone, getting to do that for them. And I hold that dear in my heart. And I told my mom, I was like, thank you. Thank you for coming on this trip. I was like, it means a lot to me to finally connect and bond with you. And I was like, hopefully you're here for the rest of my journey. I was like, it's been amazing so far. I was like, and I hope that this bond gets stronger. And she's like, of course. And then she goes, but she's like, can we go to Vegas on the way home? I was like, yes, we can go to Vegas. And like growing up, I've worked in the casinos for 19 years, and I've never wanted to go to Vegas. I have been there to all the casinos here, and I was like, I don't want to go to Vegas. I was like, it's just another place. My mom was like, no, we're going. She's like, as a treat, and just to get this all out of the way, she's like, let's go to Vegas. So we went there and we had a blast. And I was like, thank you, Mom. I was like, I needed this too. I was like, Vegas, I was like, it was fun. I was like, I enjoyed it. I was like, they made me lose my money right off the bat. I was like, I enjoyed everything else because it's just full of everything. But yeah, that's been a lot of my journey, just here and there. I just skipped around, but
Yeah, you know, it's pretty amazing because Two Spirit is something that I've definitely wanted to start learning, because in like you said, in our communities, transphobia and homophobia is huge, and it comes from that boarding school that our generations of before us, you know, like teaching us that. And like I'm trying to like get rid of that masculine side of me that was taught to me from the res, you know, because it's toxic, you know what I mean? And like I think we should, like, people like you are paving the way to like just like have people learn about these things. And who knows how many kids are on my res, on your res, or whatever res, you know, that feel like this, you know what I mean? And don't have the access to the knowledge to these things, you know what I mean? So it's amazing to see these things sprouting up, and like you said, Two Spirit is a new thing that I've definitely started learning about, and it's amazing to hear your story, you know what I mean? Because it's a big thing right now, like you said, in the beginning, people are like really afraid to have drag be read in schools, which is crazy, because people will go ask a little kid if they have a girlfriend yet, but like won't allow like a drag to be read in schools. But it's insane, like the differences, or like, you know, like what's going on in our country of the conversations. So it's amazing to hear this
it's
story.
really scary.
Yeah, it's I can't even like think of it, like fathom it, like, yeah, like the conversations are why it's like even a conversation, because everything's so sexualized. Like people are thinking of a striptease in their head when they like when they think of drag. It's like, no, that's not at all what's gonna happen. Like that's
which my mom did think that too at first, because she asked if I was a stripper. And I was like, no, mom. And so when she finally came to my first drag show, she goes, are you going to be showing any of your junk? And I was like, no, mom. I was like, I am fully clothed and just, I'm in like just show clothes, like Liza Minnelli or something like that. I was like, I don't know. And she's just like, okay. She's like, if I see anything being naked, she's like, I'm out. And so I was like, okay. And so she finally comes and she goes, wow. She goes, I was so amazed. She goes, you did so good. She goes, I didn't know what to expect. She's like, the whole show. She goes, I just loved it all. And she goes, I always thought you were a stripper because she's like, you would always come home with like a wad of ones. So she goes, I would never touch those. She goes, I didn't know what that was. She's like, so she's like, I thought you were stripping. I was like, no.
So at drag shows, like, are you when you perform, do you sing or is it lip singing?
I just lip sync. I just started getting into comedy. I'm getting to be old, so I can't really dance anymore. Before I was doing like I was doing more sensual stuff and just being my young little self. But I'm anti now, so I've had to switch it up. I do more ballads and I do more comedy now, and it's usually spoken stuff too. But it's really funny, and then you get into mixes and. The mixes are getting longer now, but I think I'm a more established queen now, so I can do that. So I get to host my own shows, and I really enjoy getting to host my own shows. Growing up, I did not. I was met with a lot of adversity and met with a lot of people because I just wanted to be the pretty girl. Like I said, I still didn't know if I wanted to be a trans uh, drag performer because at the time that was not it either. A lot of drag queens were like, "No, you're trying to be a real girl. Don't confuse the two. Don't mix the two." And so I was kind of like, oh, am I step on someone's toes? But I stuck with it. And then as the time goes on, everything that I was already doing, now they're doing now. And so I was just kind of like, so maybe I was doing something right. I feel like I started at the right time. I think I started when I was supposed to in that transition of the mean old queens to the new generation now. So I enjoy being where I'm at. So I right now I get to book the older queens and I get to book the younger queens and I get to do whatever I want to. So
You get that you got that crown all the time.
oh yeah, and like I did another pageant in the regular community before, and I only did that because my friend she was the state title holder and she needed a contestant. So I went to the prelim, I won that, and I was like, oh, great. So I was like, now I got to go to state. And when I went to state, I was like, okay. I was like, maybe I'll take this serious. I was like, well, we'll give it some effort. And then I made best non-finalist, and I was pissed. Like, my my sister was like, you weren't really that into it though. And I was like, this time I was. I was like, at the prelim I wasn't. I was like, maybe I should have came in that way this time too. I was like, but I was like, I really did try. And I was like, and it hurt my feelings. So she's like, are you gonna do it again? I was like, no. I was like, but I did hear about Miss International around that time. I was like, that's the title that's the one I want. I was like, that's a native title, and like they were like, what? They was like, Miss International what? And I was like, it's Miss International Two Spirit. And they was like, that sounds made up. And I was like, oh girl. I was like, well, when I go get it, I was like, we'll make it a thing. So we got a bunch of girls wanting to do that now here, and they didn't know that was something to do here too. So when I won, I brought it back here, and I had the longest reign. Spirit the year before, she only got 8 months. Her year got cut off, and so and it's based on whoever hosts the international gathering. The international gathering goes from the U.S. to Canada every other year. And so she won in Canada. And so when they made the bid for the next year, they pushed the date back, or no, pushed the date up when I won. And so the next year, the ones that won or that was going to host it, they pushed it back. So I had a year and a half reign. And that was a long, long reign to reign as a queen, because most queens, you don't get a full year. And so to have that title for a year and a half, it was a long one. And trying to work and juggle and travel, it burnt me out. I didn't want to do drag. I didn't want to do pageants. All I wanted to do was work after that, because I was like, man, I never got a day off. I worked 4 days at my regular job, and then I traveled 3 days. So I never actually had a day to like breathe. And so I was going, 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 going. And so right after my title was done, I was like, cut me out. Like I was ready to quit. I was ready to retire from drag. And so 2019, one of these little drag babies was like, I'm hosting a show. I need a season queen. He's like, do you still have any of your drag? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I still have all of it. I was like, but I was like, I'll have to see what I can fit in. I was like, she's bigger now. He's like, okay. He's like, well, let's see how it goes. He's like, I would like to have you come back. And so I went to that show, and it was amazing. Like, they made me feel good, and I felt the energy all over again. And I was like, I've taken a year and a half off. I miss this. So I was like, I'm back. And so he's like, yeah. He's like, you don't need to retire. So he got me back into it. And then COVID hit. And so I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, how are we going to do this? And so I had time off from work from COVID. And so we started doing online shows. And I, not being tech savvy or anything like that, I didn't know what I was doing. My first shows on the computer and on my phone, they were horrible. Like,
That must be
I
so,
have said,
so weird to have a show like that on Zoom.
on Zoom, all on all platforms. Like, you had to have like a fancy background, and then like whether you dance, you'd have to have it like set up so you didn't kick your camera, or you just sit here and perform like this. Like, I was like, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. Like, it was horrible. When I tried to dance, I about fell off the porch. It was a sad time. And then at the time, I instead of getting to perform, I just started getting in full drag, because we had time. Nobody was going to work. We were all just at home. So I would just get all up in my makeup, get on Facebook Live, let everybody see me get ready. And then I would just start another one and just talk to people for a long time, because that's all people want to do was talk and have something to do during COVID. So that was kind of a thing for me during COVID, was just to get on live, be pretty, and be that. And people were like, well, I can still support you. And so they would still send tips like that. So I was like, well, this is pretty cool. I was like, this will pass time. So COVID was a interesting learning time for myself. And then when it came time to going back to work, I had caught COVID before I went back to work. And I had breathing problems. I was having all kind of complications. And so I ended up leaving the casino, because working in the casino and trying to be trans, it was a task every day. Like, they were making silly rules just for myself. And I finally like took a step back, and I was like, I was like, nobody else has to follow these rules but me. I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I went to HR, and they were like, so are you going to renew? And even on my badge, when I first got hired on through the Indian Gaming Commission, they let me put Sage on my badge. And then someone got hired on a couple years later, and he was straight up transphobic, did not believe in anything. And we even had the insurance to help us transition at the casino at the time. Well, he went for me first. That was the first thing on his agenda, and he had my name changed back. And so, well, before he did that, I had it out with them. I went to Gaming Commission. I was like, how is this possible? They was like, that is not your birth name. They was like, we're going to change it back. And I was like, on the Gaming Commission application, it says if you go by anything else or an alias, list that and why. They took that off the application just because of me, and then that's how they justified it. And so I
I
was
feel like
like,
that's
so
illegal.
yes. And I was like, if I go to the Oklahoma Commission, I was like, are we gonna have a lawsuit? And then they just left me on red. I was like, oh my gosh. So when I went to my exit interview with HR, I was like, y'all, I was like, I even came to y'all for this. I was like, and y'all didn't even back me up. I was like, so what makes me feel safe being here? He's like, we've allowed you to be here. And I was like, yeah. I was like, just to take up space. I was like, but y'all have been trying to fire me since I've been here. I was like, and now y'all's wanting me to be here. I was like, I know y'all. I was like, I know y'all know I'm a good worker. I was like, I'm a hard worker. I was like, I'm good at anything I do. I was like, but I was like, it's time for me to go. I was like, y'all have stepped on me. I was like, and I was like, y'all's not allowing me to move up either. Like, yeah, they would not let me move up in management. I was like, why? I was like, because y'all's afraid to have a trans as a manager one day. I was like, we need spaces too. So I finally left there and I kind of went into a little depression. And then ceremony is kind of what pulled me out of that. Being around my Cherokee fam, uh, they've been allowing me to dance with them for over 10 years now. And so dancing with them all night and being around them, that kind of pulled me out of my funk because I was really spiraling and I didn't know what it was going to look like not working at the casino because that was such a crutch with the money there for a long time. I thought I had to make this big money to survive. And then having to relearn how to navigate and fend for myself and make money other ways. I was just kind of like, well, I was like, I've never thought as drag to be a platform to make money. I was like, but I was like, I've got offers to travel and do shows for big money and go to colleges and they pay for my time, my travel. I was like, let's see how this looks. And then Skoden Talks also hit me up too. They were just kind of like, we're looking for a new host. Would you be interested? And they's like, it pays a little bit. And they's like, it's not enough to be rich on. They's like, but we'll pay for your time. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, what does that look like? And so my friend was like, well, you'll interview people. You get to talk to people, all indigenous leaders from around the world. There's like, not just here in the U.S. There's like, and they're doing good things for their people. And all you got to do is ask questions and talk about what they're doing for their people and make them laugh, talk about whatever you want. And he's like, we want to keep it informal and do some good things. And I was like, cool. I was like, I'm down. I was like, shoot, yeah. He's like, we need anti-sage. So around that time, that's kind of how well, I've been an anti for a while, but I've never been introduced as anti. So now I've taken it full on as anti-sage.
I love it, and I was a part of the IP3 that interview, and it was amazing. I really dig it, and I did dig all the stuff that they're doing over there. Like I said, I was put on by a friend out here named Irene. She's done some work with you guys too. She went to a workshop that was up in where was it? This was back in December. You guys had a workshop up there, up in Northern California that she went to. So yeah, as soon as she put me on to you guys, I was like, man, I definitely want to do some work with you guys, and it's amazing the range of interviews that you guys are doing too. Because I watched the last interview, and that was a really good one. What do you guys have any upcoming interviews coming up?
We do have we're just waiting on times and when their availability is. As soon as they nail one down, then we're just boom, boom, boom. We're trying to get more out this year. Last year we were doing once a month or twice a month. So, but here this year it's been like, as soon as we get them, they say, "Are you available?" I'm like, "Yes, let's go." Like,
I've noticed that like this year you've done already like almost like one weekly. I feel like
it's picking up. I'm loving it, and I love getting to see the diversity of our indigenous people. It's just
it's cool.
amazing what people are doing. Just it's beautiful. I mean, I don't consider myself that, and just getting to interview that, and now everybody me getting interviewed today. I'm just kind of like, this is pretty freaking cool.
It's fun, man. Like it's the range of who we are. It's not just what they show in the movies. It's not just the stoic native that knows everything, like who's super spiritual, or the drunk native. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're a whole range of different people. And it's and with shows like Skoda and Talks, it shows that and it's dope. and being able to just come across these people is so cool because like I know the internet is it's kind of like it's a wishy-washy thing. Like it's a really useful thing, but also like sometimes I don't really like it because I scroll too much and I'm just seeing things I don't want to see.
Yeah.
But then again, we're just coming like we met over through the internet. Like who knows who's gonna like follow each other from this interview and or follow you from this interview and reach out to you and have conversations with you. And that's amazing because Pomo here in California is connecting with you all the way over in Oklahoma. So you know what I mean. That's who knows back in the day how long that would have taken us to reach each other. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
And snail mail.
Yeah, exactly. We would have been sitting
Or
on the
smoke
horses riding
signals.
for days or whatever. You know.
Well, also Queen Yanasa, the last interview that I had, she just now started one. Hers is called Smoke Signals. So be looking out for that one.
Okay,
She's
I'll
gonna
check
be
it
talking.
out. Yeah,
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 she's
and all
gonna
the
be starting hers, and she said it's gonna be about just her stories. She posted today um, how she thought living your best life had to be living the loudest and the most biggest, but now that she's got cancer, she said now it's just the small things that are the that mean the most to her. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm gonna follow you. I was like, that is so beautiful. I was like, she was so amazing to interview. And I think there's to me, I was like, when you have someone that knows their stuff, I was like, it makes that interview so much easier. Like having to dig for questions, those are the ones you're like, like, well, let's talk about what you ate yesterday. Like,
yeah, this was that interview for me because it was just everything just flowed. Your story, your story is amazing, and everyone in the comments was thrilled to hear it and just like super supportive. So like you got that support, like you said, you have this thing that you were given, and I think you're using it amazingly. You know what I mean? Like you said, you have a voice and people listen, and I've definitely listened this whole time. And you had me tearing up. I'm sure you had other people tearing up because that story is real. It's a real story. You know what I mean? And that's what people need to hear is these real stories of us because our stories aren't heard. And that's the biggest thing with starting this Burn the Wagon is like I was tired of not seeing us in the media. I was tired of people not hearing the real stories of us.
and thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. Like I said, I have a lot of stories. I even told him earlier. I was like, just tell me when to get cut off. I was like, because I will keep talking. I was like, I have so many stories, crazy stories. I was like, but we'll try to keep it particular today.
Yeah, I really thank you. And before we go, is there any other things that you want to bring up? Any future interviews that you're doing with Skoda Talks? Any future pageants that you want people to check out, or any of the pages that the drag pages that you want people to check out, or Two Spirit powwows?
Well, like I said, the Bates Two Spirit Powwow is every February, the first weekend in February. So definitely mark that down in your calendar. There's week-long events leading up to that. So follow Bates, BAAITS.org. Also, if you want to follow me on here as Chanel Sage on Instagram or Sage Chanel on Facebook. I'm doing shows here in Oklahoma, everywhere. I host in Norman, but I get booked out everywhere. For June, which we're waiting on the poster, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. The Smithsonian is going to host a native drag show for Native Pride for New York. And so I get to be a part of that cast. So be looking out for that flyer. If you're in the New York area, that would be great for you to come visit. But yeah, we're waiting until they officially announce it so we can announce dates and everything for it. But that's in the works. If you're also look up IP3 Indigenous Power Project. Follow us on Instagram, IP3. Come check out Skoda Talks with the Homies with your Auntie Sage. We just have random interviews. So yeah, follow me on either one of those, and I hope to see y'all around.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yahui, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you and have a good rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Auntie Chanel. That was an amazing, amazing conversation. I thank you all for commenting and joining. Again, check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple Podcasts. Check us on YouTube. If anybody has a story they want to get out there, if you want to tap in with me, definitely hop in my DMs. We'll talk about it, get a date down. Yeah, I still have merch if people want some merch, all that type of stuff. Also, we have a Patreon if you want to check out the Patreon too. Yeah, a lot of things coming from us. Hopefully, we'll see you guys soon. Peace and love.